This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening. We are presented by Status Jet. But first, SMU did get a commitment, a major one on Monday with the holiday, MLK Day. Got the days mixed up. But SMU did get a major commitment, an electric return man and do-it-all athlete committed to SMU. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But first, we are presented by our friends at Status Jet. Be sure to check out our friends at Status Jet with all their different ways that they can help your private jet chartering experience be the best that you could possibly ask for. They bring that personal touch to every aspect of your business and travel, whether it's chartering flights, buying an aircraft, or selling a plane. There is a new level of luxury that Status Jet is providing to all their customers. They're proud supporters of SMU football and SMU athletics. David Henry and his entire team will be there for you every step of the way to give you guys what you should desire in a private jet chartering experience. That's why you need to head to Status Jet and use the code PonyUpACC. Mention it for a discount on your round trip flight when you book with Status Jet. They are the premier pick when it comes to the charter jet experience, whether it's safety, speed, convenience. They've got it all handled for you. And again, their team just does it a little bit differently than some of these other companies that you can work with in the private jet charter company space. So they have various levels of planes you can get in and out of, whether you're looking to charter a large group of people for the right cost, or whether you're looking for that intimate experience on a plane with a level of luxury, space, all of those things. They can handle that and get you into the right situation and with across all their different partners. So check out Status Jet, statusjet.com. Our friends David Henry and his staff. Mention code PonyUpACC or on theponyexpress.com and get a discount on round trip flights. SMU did pick up a commitment, like we mentioned, and this one is kind of one that we mentioned on the podcast last week as a kind of a secret commitment that we were expecting, and that is Brashard Smith from Miami, a former four-star prospect who will play his final season of college football at SMU. He does have 2 years to play one season, so if something happened, he could redshirt. But this is a guy that will come in as a member of the running back room. Kyle Cooper, SMU's special teams coach and new running backs coach, really recruited him as a guy that will help SMU in the return game. He had 69 catches for 770 yards, 4 touchdowns throughout his career in Coral Gables. He made 10 starts over 35 games. He set career highs in receptions and yards in 2022 for a little bit of a drop-off this year. If you kind of watch some of the Miami message boards, a lot of these guys were talking about how this was probably a good move for him to find an offense that could use him the right way. One of his receiver teammates compared him to Tyreek Hill with just the way he's a Swiss Army knife. He can do everything offensively and could probably play defense. That's Miami wideout Colby Young this fall. He said every time Brashard touches the ball, you expect him to take it to the house. He's very electric. Reminds me a little bit of Tyreek Hill. And to hit on that point a little bit more, in 2023, he rushed 9 times for 132 yards and a touchdown. He caught 22 passes for 263 yards and 2 scores. But on 39 kickoff returns, he averaged 25 yards on the dot, a return. And that was a career high, over 39 kick returns in his entire career. He averaged 25 yards a kick. His career high in average yards per kick return came in 2023 when he averaged 29 yards, including a kickoff return for a touchdown against Texas A&M. That was good for fourth nationally among kick returners for average yards per kick return. So clearly one of the more explosive athletes in the country, and will now be able to help SMU hit that issue with kick returns. Roger Daniels ended up being the guy this year after trying out Brian Massey, Keyshawn Smith, all these different guys back there on kick return. Well, now they have somebody that is legitimately one of the best in the country at doing it, and is a veteran. He knows what to expect from Rhett Lashley and his entire crew. He played for them in the 2021 season. He's only been in college 3 years. I know that's funny these days with COVID and things like that, but Brashard Smith will bring a level of electric playmaking to SMU's return game that will complement Roger Daniels as the punt returner very well. So Kyle Cooper gets to upgrade that special teams portion of things, which anytime you can bring in a guy like this, it makes a lot of sense. And we talk about SMU and how they address the roster and how they address these positions step by step. And I mentioned throughout the summer before this season, kind of how Rhett Lashley went about fixing things on this team. And obviously, this past off season was fixing the defense, and we knew that they were able to get into some of these transfers and bring them on board, and SMU benefited from that with its best defensive season in decades. This offseason, there is a little bit of a different feel, right? Because they now have, let me see, I think 11 transfer commitments. Maybe they have 12 now. Yes, they have 12 transfer commitments in this class, and I haven't heard of any fires and things like that. But SMU knew they were losing defensive linemen. They went out and they got Tank Booker. They got Omari Abor. They got Jonathan Jefferson. They have Jafari Harvey, and they have Mike Lockhart coming in. Those are the big guys that are going to be expected to fill the void that has been left by the guys departing off this 2023 roster. They also went out and brought in a veteran defensive back in Deuce Harmon. They upgraded some of their depth on the offensive line with Savion Byrd and Nate Anderson. Those are nice pieces for that group to just feel better about itself overall from a depth perspective. Remember, they did have I think one or two guys. They had Cam Irvin, who they lost, and they, I want to say, lost Jacob Waller, if I'm thinking. Yes, Jacob Waller transferred out, and they had Hiron White leave. So they needed to upgrade kind of their depth overall. They're still looking for a tackle, I think to bring in, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But Justin Medlock, they lose Chris Adamora to graduation. They needed kind of to balance that room out at linebacker, and they went with Justin Medlock, who's now in the class, so to speak, with Alex Kilgore and Brandon Maiazono. They'll bring in Brandon Booker and Zach Smith, and of course they have the veterans Jaquandis Burns, Kobe Wilson, and Ahmad Walker. Justin Medlock can be a guy that can help you on special teams, be a depth linebacker, and you hope that with a fresh start, after playing for a very good defensive team, but limited, that he can find his footing overall. Then you bring in Ashton Cozart, and now Brashard Smith. And this is a very low-risk move to bring in Brashard Smith. But I mention this because if you look at the issues SMU had this season on special teams, there was, at least 5 games into the season. I know they started off the bat. It might have been a penalty, but there was always something with the kickoff returns for about the first half of the season. And whether it was fumbling, whether it was just not letting it go into the end zone, whether or not taking a knee, all those things were issues. And eventually they got on the right footing with Roger Daniels back there. But even then, you had just still some issues. When you have a guy who has been on record, at least through laser, running a 4.52, that's what Brashard Smith has, at least on his resume, you're going to have somebody who can really, be a game breaker. And I think that's important overall, of course, because SMU does need that kind of jolt of athleticism to this offense, and overall this special teams. So I like the addition. If you can fix the kick return game with one guy, I mean, there are very few guys in the country that you would want to bring in over Brashard Smith. And for him to have 1 year, be a very low risk type of addition, this makes a ton of sense for SMU to go ahead and do. So they do bring him in. Um, Again, he has 1 year of eligibility left, so he can just kind of come in and if he pans out, he pans out. That would be a huge boost for special teams. And then when it comes to kind of the protection things, I know that's something they're working on figuring that out. How can they fix that? And it reared its ugly head against Boston College with the blocked field goals. So there are things that SMU has to fix on special teams. They just fixed a big one, which can help the offense get better starting field position. Means you got to go a lesser distance to get into scoring range, get into the opponent's side of the field. It can just change the way you can plan if you trust somebody back there who has done it at a high level for multiple years. So Rhett Lashley and his staff throughout the first year they came in, they had to hold this roster together. That was a huge focus. They couldn't do as much as they wanted to on defense. We realized that. Then year two, they came in with the mindset of we've got to get a ton of players on defense. They did that. They fixed that. And now this is kind of the offseason where you hold everything together. You bring guys in to plug some holes, but you got to still fix things. One of those was special teams. They just made a major move to fix special teams with the addition of Brashard Smith. So I like it. And for those of you asking, like, okay, well, what does this mean for spots? SMU basically has to get under the 85 by fall camp. That's kind of the rule. And then when you bring guys in, you can then say to somebody this spring, hey, this is kind of your make it or break it spring. Look at where you're at on the depth chart. Look at what we're kind of expecting out of you. Here's who's in front of you. Then maybe we see some more attrition. Maybe we see guys take medical red shirts. Maybe we see them or medically retire. Maybe we see some other guys move on. That will get them under the 85 by the time fall camp rolls around. So for SMU, again, I like this move a lot. And it was one that just needed to be kept quiet. I mean, he's one of the top return men in the country. He's a gadget player. He will start off in that running back room, be able to play a little bit in the slot. But this is a really nice pickup for SMU to address a position of need. Before we go any further, guys, it's time for me to remind you guys about our friends at Game Time. GameTime.co, but especially use the Game Time app and use promo code PONY for $20 off your first order when you download the Game Time app. Use that promo code PONY for $20 off your first order. I love Game Time the way that they make everything so easy. It's just a couple of clicks once you know what you want to buy from that option that you're looking for. For me, we've done a bunch of different things when it comes to we went and saw Bill Burr, a comedian. We've gone to sporting events. We've checked out different ways for our friends to come join us at sporting events. SMU games this fall. Well, in just a couple taps, you can be in Moody Coliseum for the Temple game on Tuesday night, 7:00. It is on ESPN Plus. So one of the best ways to see it and see it live is to use Game Time. You can see they have those little markers right there where you can see the cheapest deal. You could see what they consider the best deal. Club Baseline 102 row 4 for $22 is pretty solid to sit that low. SMU is among the top teams in the AAC. They've shown that so far in conference play. So go check them out and use Game Time with the promo code PONY for $20 off your first order. And if you find tickets for whatever event you look at in the same section or row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. That's the Game Time guarantee. So download Game Time today. Terms do apply, but use promo code PONY for $20 off your first order. Appreciate Game Time and their partnership with On the Pony Express and On 3. SMU fans, this is a fun time of year. You get to start to see how some of these players, how their recruitments are starting to unfold, just from a visit perspective, just from a priority perspective. I do want to highlight one guy who swung through, but he's not a member of the 2025 class. SMU already looking ahead in 2026 with JJ Mays, Gerald Mays. He's out of Pflugerville Weiss. That team is loaded, and he's already one of the top offensive linemen in the state of Texas for next cycle. He was on campus. We'll have his full reaction to his visit at ontheponyexpress.com this week. He's going to be an interior guy. He's somebody that really enjoyed his time around Garen Justice. He's already been to Texas Tech on a visit in the past. He's going to be planning out some other ones. He's going to Texas where the Longhorns haven't offered yet, but he's going there for their big junior day on January 20th. But this weekend for SMU is really when things start to heat up, and the staff will be hosting multiple top prospects. That's why you should head to ontheponyexpress.com. Subscribe for just $1 for your first month. We'll have the rundown on who's coming in to the Hilltop for visits this weekend. And there will be a lot to kind of go over on the subscriber only podcast when it comes to that and where things stand for the Mustangs and their recruiting picking up in the class of 2025. But couple other notes here. SMU did bring in 2 early enrollees from the high school ranks, and they started class on Wednesday, or will start class on Wednesday, as SMU is off on Tuesday with the snowy and ice situation. Dallas just doing what Dallas does, shutting down whenever there's bad weather. But Tyler Aronson, the quarterback commitment for the class of 2024, is now officially on campus. He enrolled this weekend, as did Red Oak linebacker Zach Smith, who is one of the top linebackers for SMU on their board. I mean, they were on him early and made a big push for him. He's basically my pick for sleeper of the class. I mean, I think between Maurice Crum and Scott Simons, they've done a really nice job evaluating linebackers. Even Brandon Maiazono, who kind of came in after playing quarterback and all sorts of positions at Frisco, has looked like somebody that they feel like can pan out and be a guy that will impress. Zach Smith kind of reminds me of Ahmad Walker in a way, not the tallest guy in the world. I know Ahmad's 5'11" and a half, maybe 6 foot, but Zach Smith a little bit taller than that, but kind of, again, the sawed-off middle linebacker that they were looking for. So those are your 2 early enrollees for the freshman class. But one thing I'll note is that King Large, the interior offensive lineman who signed with SMU this fall, he and his family are actually going to move to Dallas. So that'll be something that will happen here soon. He'll finish out at St. John Bosco online, which is just crazy, but I guess it's a product of COVID and how they kind of handle things like that. So he'll be living in Dallas here soon enough and finishing out his career online. So he'll be able to acclimate. He and his family will be able to acclimate here in Texas. And he's a guy SMU is really excited about. I think he could be a guy that pans out as a multi-year starter for SMU in the class of 2024. So those are a couple of news and notes from the class of 2024. The rest of them will be here in in June, as they'll get ready to work out with Sean Griswold and get ready for their first season on the Hilltop, which happens to be in the ACC. One thing we're going to do here in the coming weeks is try to start looking ahead to the ACC in 2024, do some team previews, maybe have some guests on, things like that, to talk a little bit about what to expect with SMU going into that league for the first time. And that'll be fun to kind of go through and learn more about these ACC schools for you guys. That's something I'm excited about, kind of getting an early feel for them, right? Like before spring practice, like how is the pulse in Tallahassee, in all these different places after the 2023 season is all wrapped up? What do they need to accomplish in spring ball? Those are things that are going to be on the table for the On the Pony Express podcast. But back on track now. When it comes to what's next for SMU in the transfer portal, I know we hit on this a lot on the podcast, so sometimes it is repetitive. But when you get a guy that is kind of off the radar from who we normally talk about in Brashard Smith, it's worth circling back on. We talked about maybe how they can open up some roster spots, but now with the transfer portal, it is pretty much over with. SMU does have a few more days to bring in some players. But from my understanding, I think SMU is done as of now. And what they'll do is they will go into the next phase, which is assessing the guys that they have on the roster. They'll start up with workouts with Sean Griswold probably Monday, like this coming week, is my guess. And when it comes to the overall roster that they are going to build up for 2024, SMU does have some guys that are going to have to move on in some capacity. And so we'll be tracking that as the spring unfolds. SMU will be kind of following the same spring football calendar that they did in 2023 with the kind of the split session where they'll go a few practices before spring break hits for SMU, and then they'll go with a few after, including the spring game. So that's something to keep an eye on. Last year, they started the first week in March, the 4th, and then they returned from spring break March 22nd and got going on that. So with this cycle, they'll be able to assess, all right, we're just not seeing it from so-and-so, or the buy-in isn't there. I will say this team, as you saw in the fall, there's a lot of buy-in among the players. Very few guys that you sit there and you say, just not having it, or isn't a bought into the program. I mean, you see guys like a Stone EB emerge as an H-back. You see guys that even like Ja'Kai Clark just continuing to work and get better and lose weight so that he can play in a few games down the stretch in redshirt and help this team win a conference championship. Those are all really important things. And I look up and down this roster, and there's just not many guys that really stand out and you say, man, that guy is just not bought in. He's going to move on. It can be a talent thing. It can be a injury thing, but they have this culture in the right direction and way. And I think we'll see a couple things work themselves out. And that'll lead to some more guys being brought in from the transfer portal. I think they want to bring in a true offensive tackle, one maybe with years to play. We'll kind of be monitoring that as the spring unfolds. The transfer portal window for the spring does open. I want to say it's a 15-day window that let's see. I think they moved it up. April 15th. Yep, April 15th to the 30th. That is the window for players to enter, which will work out again for SMU. They'll be pretty much wrapping with spring ball. They'll know who can move on. We saw some guys move on after spring, and even last year, letting them get a lot of reps in the spring game to help them with their next transfer start or stop and get some film out there. So all those things are going to happen on SMU side. But I think from who they're going to bring in, an offensive tackle is, I think, a big want. I think tight end, somebody who's a big body with another year or two of eligibility would be wise, just so that you can bridge that gap to Trip Reardon. I think that's a position group that is really looking good. You have RJ Maryland, who will be a junior. If he has another strong year, they'll obviously have to push for him to come back. The goal and the expectation would be that he would, unless he really takes that true step to stardom, and his draft stock can't get any higher, things like that. But you also have Adam Moore emerging, but you do have Trip Reardon, who will be a redshirt freshman. If you can get a guy with like 1 year to be a blocking tight end, like a true, just even like okay threat in the passing game, what Micah Hiltz was kind of supposed to be for SMU, that would be ideal. And then from there, we'll see them go after another defensive tackle. I feel like we'll see them go after another cornerback. We'll see if they kick the tires on a safety. If they do that, that'll be a change for SMU that would be welcomed, just to bring in players that again would have like multiple years of eligibility left that can help for years to come. That would be a big goal for this cycle of transfers in the spring. They already have their veteran in Deuce Harmon, who has 2 years. They have some young guys they trust, but they need another player who can contribute in the cornerback room. That would really solidify things and again allow a strong rotation there at that position group. So overall, really nice pickup for SMU and Brashard Smith. That is something that might surprise some folks, but hey, they went out and they felt like they needed to address the roster in that spot, and they did it. They will continue to do that at other spots, and they will have spots to give on that front. So we are going to talk a little bit about basketball here as they bounce back on Saturday with a win. But first, guys, again, let me remind you about our friends at Status Jet. Status Jet is the place to go for all your private jet chartering needs. You can use promo code PonyUpACC for a discount on a round trip flight to be worked out between you, David Henry, and his team. You can fly anywhere, anytime, and they have all sorts of different aircraft available. They can put you in a large commercial jet if you have that big of a group. They can put you in large cabin jets. They can put you in super mid-size jets, light jets, turboprops, and even helicopters. And you can work with their sales and acquisition team to sell or obtain a private aircraft. And Status Jet can help ensure that seamless transition process. And also you can bounce things off of them to make sure you get the full market value of your aircraft. Or if you're looking to invest, their team can provide you with all the information, knowledge, and expertise you need to do that. Contact Status Jet 866-404-9314. They can walk you through all of those things. Head to statusjet.com and you can reach out to them directly through phone, through any of their different contact methods on the site, submitting their form, and be sure to check out their private jet membership program, the Elevate card. And when you do that and you do join with the Elevate card, you do get the $15,000 membership fee waived. So check out their site, statusjet.com, and they can share with you all the things they can do for you to help you through your private jet chartering experience. SMU basketball got a win on Saturday on the road at East Carolina. The Mustangs won 75-64. All 11 road games for SMU, all 11 wins for SMU have been by double digits. This program is playing a high level of defense. That showed once again in Greenville, where Zurich Phelps led SMU with 17 points. Chuck Harris had 14, but he also had 8 assists on the day. I thought he played a strong game. SMU got enough from its three-point shooting. They went 9 of 26. And I think the big takeaway for me is in watching this team is they can be frustrating to watch, especially offensively. They play really well defensively. They rebound. Even though this broke a streak a bit of out rebounding the other team, I think it was a 8 or 9 game streak that came to an end, out rebounding the other team. But they were really able to find a groove between points in the paint, 3-point shooting. And when SMU can get both to kind of complement each other, that's when this team has that ability to be one of the best teams in the AAC. We saw it at Memphis. If they just would have gotten a little bit from beyond the arc, they win that game. If they make their free throws like they did against ECU when they went 12 of 13, they win at Memphis. They get a top 25 win. They get a quad one win. They sit atop the AAC standings. Instead, now they're going to have to continue to battle here, but it is a very difficult road for this team to make the NCAA tournament. They're going to have to find their footing the rest of the way and really make noise in the AAC tournament throughout the course of the rest of the season. So, but a nice win on the road at ECU to bounce back. Obviously, the Pirates are about 500 as a basketball team. They're 2-2 in AAC play. SMU is looking up in the standings at Memphis, North Texas, FAU, and Charlotte. Charlotte sitting at 9-7 overall, so they just kind of looks like they might have gotten a decent start to conference play now with already 4 games under their belt. Their one loss being to SMU. But you look at the Memphis, North Texas, FAU looking to be the class of the AAC along with SMU. I think for this SMU team, you have an off game from Keon Ambrose Hilton. You have Tyreek Smith with an off game. I think they combined for 6 points or 8 points or something like that together. It was kind of silly, but SMU's bench came alive, 25 points from the bench, which was nice to see. That's the type of complementary basketball SMU needs to continue to play if they want to make noise in the AAC. And they'll be back at it again against Temple Tuesday night at 7 p.m. in Moody Coliseum. They will be hosting the Owls that sit at 8-9 overall. SMU sitting at 11-5 overall, 2-1 in league play. SMU heads to or hosts Tulsa on Saturday, January 20th at 2 p.m. as well. So we'll be keeping an eye on that one for you as well. But this SMU team, I think, is fun to watch when they've got some semblance of an offense in order. And it's not always the easiest thing to do. It's just kind of with where they're at as a team, but they found a way at East Carolina to get enough complementary basketball on the offensive end to support their strong defense. I think this is a different brand of basketball that SMU is not accustomed to, really. Just being so defensive. It's been since the Larry Brown times that SMU has played this well defensively. They are one of the best teams in the country. They should be appreciated as such for being one of the best teams in the country on the defensive end. But when it comes to offense, it is very hit or miss. And if they can find some consistency against the top teams in the AAC, then maybe they can make some noise and push for not only a strong NIT seed, but if they can find that magic in the AAC tournament, then they can maybe find themselves in the dance. But as of now, they're not. Their net and their Ken Palm scores are good. They just have to make a ton of noise in the AAC to really find themselves in that serious conversation for the NCAA tournament. But all 11 wins for SMU by double digits, which is really impressive and certainly helps on that front when it comes to putting together an overall just resume for the NIT in particular, which would be a good step in the right direction for the program. So we'll be tracking SMU Temple 7 p.m. Central on ESPN Plus. That one at Moody Coliseum. Check them out. The tickets on Game Time, the Game Time app. Appreciate you guys listening to this edition of the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com and also hit that follow button for our YouTube channel as well. Over 1,500 of you guys on here now, so it's been a fun ride on that front. Looking forward to starting to look ahead to the future in the ACC as we're kind of in full offseason mode with football now that the transfer portal window is winding down. Looking forward to all of that. Thank you guys for listening to this edition of the podcast. We will catch you guys later this week with another one.